So this lecture covers the basics of writing and organization in terms of how to structure your paragraphs and your paper. So to begin with, as you're writing, you want to make sure that you use an academic tone. So one of the first rules of writing is to not write the way you talk. You need to kind of learn a strategy that's called code switching, and remember that the way we write is different, and sometimes you say things in a different way. So when we're writing in an academic tone, we avoid contractions, so don't, can't, won't, things like that, write them out. You want to avoid colloquial expressions. These mean casual, so things like you know or got to. You want to avoid vague expressions, things like a lot, some, practically all. These things can mean a lot of different things, and we want to try to be as precise as we can. We also want to avoid hyperbolic language. So this is an exaggerated statement that's not meant to be taken literally. So something like, students will die of exhaustion if you give them too much reading, right? That's not actually literally what's going to happen. And so we need to avoid using that kind of language. While we might use it in our casual conversational tone, we wouldn't use it in academic writing. Okay, so when we're organizing the paper, by now you've made your outline, so you should already be thinking about this, but we can think about organization at the global level. So the overall organization of where your main points are going to go. We can think about it at the sectional level. So your introduction first, and then your method and results and discussion if you're writing an empirical paper, or at the local level in terms of paragraphs or even sentences within paragraphs. So we're going to mostly focus on global and sectional organization today. Okay, so this seems obvious, but sometimes students kind of miss this. In terms of the basic structure of your paper, it should have a beginning, middle, and an end. So in the beginning, you're giving reader an idea of what to expect and what to look for, the direction they want to go in. So the very beginning of your paper should kind of lead to the subject. You will start out broad. We'll talk about that in a moment, but you don't want to go too broad. And the beginning of your paper should really culminate in the thesis or the argument that you are going to make. The middle of your paper will amplify or fulfill what you promised at the beginning. It's going to allegedly prove your thesis. And then the end lets the reader know when they've arrived and will remind them of what they've learned. It kind of drives the point home and really pushes the bigger impact. So the basic structure that your paper should take is called a keyhole structure, where your introduction is going to be the top portion of that kind of top triangle, where that beginning paragraph starts as an open invitation, very relatively broad, but you're going to get more and more specific until your thesis is the last sentence of that first paragraph. The middle paragraphs, you're going to kind of present them based on what you think is the organization that makes the most sense. You're going to illustrate with facts, with evidence from your articles, things like that. And then you're going to end going back out from specific to more broad. So in your conclusion, the first sentence of your conclusion is going to be your thesis reworded, but then you're going to start to step back and become more general again. So that's kind of the bigger global organization of your paper. In terms of the standard paragraphs, a paragraph, like an essay, needs a beginning, middle, and an end. So this is really important, and sometimes this is the skill that students struggle with. Paragraphs should be 4 to 5 sentences, but you need that topic sentence and the end sentence to really make a good, solid paragraph to help make your paper stronger. So your paragraph, each and every paragraph you write, should start with a topic sentence, which is essentially a mini thesis. And you can think about your paragraph as a mini essay. It's the main point of the paragraph. If you can't identify what the main point of your paragraph is, you probably need to think about rewriting it. But the topic sentence should let the reader know what the paragraph will be about. The middle sentences will fill in the details, and the end sentences finish it up kind of wrap up the topic, and most importantly, bring the paragraph back to the thesis of the paper. We've talked about kind of these beginning paragraphs, the very beginning of your paper. The very first paragraph should be a funnel. And often the best way, if you're kind of stuck with how to write that very first paragraph, is to use an opener. Go to your thesis statement, pick one word from it, and say something about it. 3 to 4 sentences later, you say stuff about the rest of the components of your thesis. You end with your thesis. So in terms of that very first paragraph in your paper, you're going to start out broad, but talking about something related to your thesis, and get more and more specific until that last sentence of your first paragraph should be your thesis. Okay, in terms of middle paragraphs within your paper, they should all have topic sentences, and your topic sentences need to have hooks to the previous paragraph. So some people put their hooks at the end of the paragraph to link it to the next one. I think that your hooks need to go at the beginning of the paragraph. Ways to hook it to the previous paragraph are doing things like repeat a word or a few words, tie in a thought, or use a transition word. So if you just spend a paragraph talking about how parents influence their kids' eating behaviors, you might transition, and the first sentence of the next paragraph might be, despite the fact that parents influence eating behaviors, peers can also play a role. And that would tell your reader that your next paragraph is going to be about how peers influence eating behavior. But remember that topic sentence needs to be broad enough to cover the entire paragraph that you're going to write about. Again, a reminder that your middle paragraphs should be a mini essay, so they should have that beginning, middle, and an end. They should be coherent. They should flow smoothly, cover everything that you mentioned in your topic sentence, and should be kind of well developed. So it should include details, examples, full explanations, and most importantly, citations. And don't forget that transition to kind of link your paragraph to the previous paragraph. And then your end paragraph, at the very end, so this is your conclusion basically, it is your conclusion, is that you want to reassert your thesis. So that'll be the first sentence. Rephrase it, but it should be the same argument. Summarize your paper, and then think about what you want your reader to take away. We're going to do a little more in the coming weeks about what needs to go into your conclusion, because it should be a little bit more than just a summary. So this is the basic structure. Remember that keyhole structure, going from broad down to your thesis, filling it out in the middle of your paper, and then going from your thesis back to more broad in your conclusions. And also remember that every single one of your paragraphs should have a topic sentence and a concluding sentence. And your concluding sentence should link it back to your thesis. And these are keys that will help fill out your paper and help make your paper stronger in terms of supporting your thesis argument.